So I wonder what today was all about. Works out that way, don't it? We have a few glitches from time to time, hiccups. That's what humans are all about. God didn't create us to be perfect. But you know what? I run into a lot of women. Weren't for them, a lot of things wouldn't get done. You know, women are very intelligent people. Just consider maybe this morning some of the quotes from some famous ladies over the past. Maybe you'll remember them. Miss Irma Bombach once said, "Never lend your car to anyone who you've given birth to." You know, Roseanne Barr, you maybe remember her. Roseanne was the type of person. She's very outspoken, and she said one time, she says, "I don't, I'm not going to vacuum until Sears invents one that you can ride on." And then Dolly Parton said, "I'm not offended by all the dumb blonde jokes because I know I'm not dumb. I also know I'm not blonde." You know. Margaret Thatcher, the former Prime Minister of England, she said, "In politics, if you want anything said, ask a man. But if you want anything done, you need to ask a woman." And Zsa Zsa Gabor, maybe you remember her most famously, probably Green Acres, but Zsa Zsa said that, I am a miraculous housekeeper. Every time I leave a husband, I keep his house." You know, she was married a lot of times as well. And so there's a lot to learn from intelligent women. And so if you want to go to the scriptures this morning in Proverbs chapter 31, we'll read about what could probably be classified as almost a perfect woman. But let me preface this for you this morning. Sometimes I think when we read this, we think about men writing the scriptures, and this is just what we're looking for. But I want you to look, first of all, in verse 1 of Proverbs chapter 31 this morning, and look what it says. Because I don't want you to think that this was a male chauvinist writing these things and what he expected. It says, "These are the sayings of King Lemuel, an oracle what? His mother taught him." It wasn't something he made up on his own. His mother taught him what woman that she would like him to have. I think that this is the opinion of a lot of mothers. She's got this high aspiration for her son and other men. And if they're going to find a wife, you only want the best for them. There's probably a lot of you ladies this morning that think, when my baby got married, I just wanted the best for him. And so, just anybody wasn't going to do. After all, who's taking care of him all these years? And so that's the way Lemuel's mother's been doing. I had a good friend of mine that worked with me for some years when I worked at the Chevrolet dealer that I worked at before I left to go into ministry. And John was 34 years old before he got married. And he still lived at home with his mother and his father. And his mama watched out for him, and there weren't a woman that he contacted or that he had ever dated that was good enough for Johnny. That's why she called him Johnny. And she said, "Johnny, you just don't need to be with that woman." Or, "Johnny, I don't like that girl." And the woman he married, she didn't like him. There was never a woman good enough for Johnny. But she's turned out to be a fine wife for him. But, after 34 years, one of the reasons John was probably a little bit hesitant about getting married is because he knew how his mom was going to be when he finally did marry and move and leave the home. And so I want us to look at this passage this morning, and I want you to understand that what we're going to be looking at is from verse 22 on, kind of the last 22 verses of this. Not verse 22 on, but the last 22 verses of this proverb. And the reason for it is we're going to be kind of skipping around, so we'll try to give you the scriptures as we go, because they didn't do it thematically. They kept going back and forth, so I pulled it back together for you. Look, first of all, what it says about this Proverbs 31 woman this morning. It says, first of all, that she excels in relationships. She excels in relationships. First of all, she excels in the relationship when you think about her as a wife. Look what it says in verses 10 and 12, and then again in verse 28. "A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life." Look, verse 28 says, "Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her." And so first of all, we need to understand that our women in our lives, they're very valuable. I can't say that I've always seen men treat women the best in the world. They're devalued. My grandmother, on my dad's mother, bless her heart, she seemed like she never did anything that was quite good enough for my grandfather. We could come and visit, and my grandmother couldn't have any peace for visiting. It didn't matter if it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock. The first thing he would say was, "Ida Gay, you get on in the kitchen there, and you got company now. You need to get something on the table for them to eat." She never had a minute's peace when that type of thing came. He just saw her as someone to facilitate what needed to be done. And so I've seen women not being truly valued for what they need to be valued for. But here he tells us that we need to value her. Next it says she's the kind of wife that's good for her husband. Now see, there's some wives that are not good for their husbands. Wives have the ability to either build up or tear down their husbands. But here he says, we want her to only bring him good. And that's what Proverbs 31 says. A great wife can make the difference whether a man is successful in life or not. Someone once said behind every successful man, there is a surprise mother-in-law, because they just don't quite understand how he could get where he is. And so what we need to understand from the Scriptures this morning, though, is we need to be praising a good wife. It's so easy to become, very comfortable with the way things are going, and we never really recognize what you really do, regardless of what side of the relationship it's on, what you do for this relationship. Remember, I told you a while back, about a few years ago, when this insurance president, this big executive, he was the president of a large insurance company, and he and his wife, they didn't get much time off much, and so they decided one time they were going to take a road trip across the country. And so as they were traveling, they stopped to get some gas, and he decides he has to use the restroom. So when he goes to the restroom and he comes back, he notices that his wife is in this very friendly conversation with the guy that pumped the gas, the gas station attendant. And so when he gets back in the car, and he says, "Well, you're mighty friendly with that guy." She said, "Oh, you don't understand. He was we were friends as teenagers. Matter of fact, we even dated." And he just kind of smugly looked, and he said, "Well, aren't you happy?" He said, "Let's imagine if you had got stuck with him." He said, "You've been married to a gas station attendant instead of a president of a large insurance company." She says, "No, you don't understand." She said, "If I had married him, he'd been the president of a large insurance company. You'd been pumping gas." And but what we need to understand is a woman can build up or she can tear down her husband. And second thing she understands is that she's going to be, in her relationships, she's going to be a great mother. Proverbs chapter 31, verse 14 and 15 says, "She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls." And then again it says in verse 28, "Her children arise and call her blessed." Here's a mother who provides food for her family. She does whatever it takes. Now, she's not like us. She can't jump out in the van or the car or whatever it is and run down to McDonald's or Bojangles and grab a biscuit early in the morning, or she don't run out to Lowe's Food and grab whatever it is for them to eat. Back in this time, they didn't have cornflakes and Pop-Tarts. You maybe remember these times, and maybe you would have grew up in a household where you didn't jump up in the morning and grab the cold cereal or pop a Pop-Tart in there or grab the waffles and drop one in the toaster. Mom got up, she made you some breakfast. She had you ready to get out of the house. And maybe you were that type of mother where you had to get up and you prepared a meal for your family, and you had bacon and eggs and sausages like my mama did every morning. And look, she's hiding back there now, but anyway, but we she's the type of woman. She did whatever it took, and here's the reward for being that great mother. Her children blessed her. Her children blessed her because of it. It's tough being a mother. One mother had 4 children, and they were all under the age of 4 years old. And so you can imagine what she was dealing with, trying to have all these little bitty kids running around. She said it was difficult until she got a playpen. Now, when she got that playpen, she said from then on, from 2 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, everything was okay, because she'd climb in it and the kids couldn't get to her. She had some way to get away from them. And I don't want you to think either that you got to listen to everything your teenagers tell you. No, moms, if listen to what they've got to say once they get grown. Tracy Atkins got a song out right now, and it talks about you're going to miss this. I don't know if you've heard it or not. It's a country song that's out right now, and it talks about different stages of life. And we always think that what's going on is just the worst part of life, regardless if it's growing up or if it's waiting to get our driver's license or if it's waiting to graduate high school or college or getting our own home or watching our kids grow up and be little bitty babies. And all along he's telling you, he said, you're going to miss this. Love it and cherish it and pay attention to it. And I believe a lot of you ladies this morning and even husbands are saying, I miss, that time I had to crawl into the playpen to get away from the kids. It was worth it all, wasn't it? Wasn't it? And so, being a great mother. But also it says she excels as being a great friend. Verse 20 says she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. So what is a friend? A friend is going to be someone there when you really need them. And they're going to lend that helping hand. That's what this woman's doing. She's not only looking around and seeing the poor and the helpless and the needy, but she's doing something about it. And it doesn't say that she went and dropped a little money in the hat or she dropped off a bag full of clothes somewhere. No, it says what? She reached out her arms. She extended her hands. She got personally involved in people's lives. And that's what a good friend does. And then it says finally, we look at this woman as she relates to other people as a worker. Now I want you to listen to this woman. Now Mom had some high aspirations for Lemuel. She really did. But obviously this woman was out there. It may have been his mother. She might have been saying, this is what you need to be looking for. You want to find a woman like Mom. I don't know. But look what it says in verse 13 and then 16 through 19 and verse 24. It says, she selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She considers the fields and buys it out of her own earnings. Wait a minute. There's a woman in the Bible. The Bible always said woman ain't supposed to work, didn't it? You're supposed to just stay home, take care of the children. That's what we always preach. But look, it says, out of her own earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for the task. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. So let's just see what this woman can do. First of all, she's able to purchase raw materials, and then she's in the real estate business. And then she's also in the commercial agriculture business, because she inspects a field and buys it, it says. So she must have some operating capital because then it says she's planting a vineyard. So now this is a businesswoman if we want to think about one. It says she's a diligent worker. She makes a profit even if she has to work at night. What does she do with the wool and flax? Verse 13 says she makes linen garments and sells them to the merchants. And, so obviously now she's also in the wholesale tapestry business. The woman's got a lot going on. Now, she's busy. And so a lot of people, like I said, say the woman's place is in the home, but obviously the scriptures, the verses are saying it deals a lot more with a woman's business expertise than it addresses, the other parts of being a homemaker. God blesses that. God wants you to do that, but you notice she didn't ignore one for the other. No, she understood the full ramifications of it. My mom, she's here this morning with us, and she understands when she would get up in the morning, she made to get us up. She was our alarm clock, and she would come around and make sure everybody got up. And we had our clothes were clean, and sometimes she'd even have them laid out for you. Now I'm talking about when I was a teenage boy. I wasn't talking about picking out my own stuff. 21, Mama says. And but she'd have them, ready to go, and make sure you had everything you needed for the day. And then she would get started with her day, and then she'd go to work. Now, it didn't just stop there. When she got off work, she had to go by the grocery store. She had to come home and prepare supper. She had to get more laundry on because 6 people living in the house, or 8, or however how many grandyoungers they come home to roost by this time, and friends and neighbors. And then she's got to get all these meals on the table. And so about 10 o'clock at night, she finally gets to sit down and take that first breath. You see, she didn't just quit when the sun went down. She kept the light going. And then she prepared to get ready to go again the next day. She didn't ignore one thing for the next. She didn't say, well, I've worked today. You go in there and, fend for yourself. You find you something to eat. Or you go wash your own clothes, or you go whatever the case is. Now, she should have done that if I was that old. If I was 21 and she was doing it, she should have told me, you get in there and make your own. But she didn't. She says, you're in my house, I'm taking care of you. And so you need to appreciate the things that are done for you. And so, but this woman was also the Proverbs 31 woman, she's also a CEO of her family, And I've learned through the years as I've become part of the ministry and I get to know people and I get to know husbands and wives and things like that, I don't simply now ask the woman, do you work? I ask her, do you work outside the home? Because I find out a lot of times women take offense if I say, do you have a job? Because if they simply are homemakers, and we just say you're simply a homemaker, well, then we're not saying they're really working. So what we have to ask them now is, do you work outside the home? Because it is a lot of work. Because I'm a part-time homemaker myself. I found out it wasn't just a female role. So I help out with what I can in the home. And then look at the second thing this morning. She excels also in her abilities. Not only does she excel in her relationships, she's excelling in her abilities. Look, she's able to create, the scripture says. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindles in her fingers. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. So here's the woman who has the ability to take some basic necessities and basic materials in life and create something beautiful out of them. You ever seen people just that creative? You can take the littlest nothing. You're like, well, that's just a bunch of old cups, or that's just whatever the case is. And they make something beautiful out of it. And I'm just not that creative in my thinking. But I know people that are. And it just amazes me of what people can get out of nothing and make it so valuable and so precious when they hand it to you. And that's the way this woman was. And that's the way many mothers are. But she's also able to plan ahead, it says. Not only can she create, she plans ahead. Look at verse 21 and 27. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. You see, there's a number of references in this passage about the future. She thinks ahead. She's not simply worried about, can I get through with what I can get done today? What am I going to make for supper tonight when I get home? My mama's mama, you can ask Mom, you about knew what she was going to be having for dinner on any given night because she planned her menu out a week or so ahead of time. And she would say, we're having pork chops Monday, we're having fried chicken Tuesday, we're having spaghetti on Thursday, Wednesday, we're having soup. She knew what she was having. You didn't have to worry about it. She had her stuff planned out. And that way she knew where she was going and what needed to be taken care of ahead of time. Howard Guidry, how he talks about me sometimes. He was making a joke about how he didn't like me. He said, I hate Daniel because he said when you have an assignment or something to do or a paper due, he said Daniel had his done a month ahead of time. But I hated to wait till the last minute, and I still wait the last minute to do something. I like to know where we're going, not where we're just at or where we've been. If you don't know where you're going, you're in a mess. If you leave here and get ready to go on a trip somewhere, you don't have an idea where you're heading, you're going to fumble your way all the way there to get there. But if you can get in the car and know where your turns and your detours are already at and things like that, things are going to go a lot smoother for you. And that's the way this woman was. She knew how to plan ahead. See, a Proverbs 31 woman stays busy doing the right things at the right time. She plans her life in a way that she accomplishes a great deal. If you've never sat down and planned your day out, 24 hours, just sit down and write down what you do in the course of a day. And you'll find out how much idle time you actually have, even though sometimes you think you're busy. I never realized that till I went to Bible college. I had to schedule my sleeping, my study time, my class time, my family time, my meals, everything. For a solid week, you had to write it ahead of time, not what you did this past week. You got to write out what you're going to do next week and when you're going to do it. And when you do that, you know how much time you have. And I realized I had a lot of time on my hands. I didn't have to worry about being overwhelmed with so much to do because I knew what I had to do and when I could do it. And on top of that, then I was able to sit back and rest and catch my breath. And so if you ever do that, you'll find out. And obviously this woman understood this practice and this principle way back then. And then finally this morning, it says in this, she excels in character. Not only does she excel in her relationships and her abilities to do things, but she's excelling in her character. You know, and so a person's abilities have to do a lot with their character, who they are, what makes them up, you know. And so let's notice just a quick 3 things this morning. We've had a long service about this woman. First of all, we look at her character on the outward things. Listen to what it says in verse 25. She is clothed with strength and dignity. You know, now it didn't say that she had on a nice wool suit or nothing. What does it say? She's clothed in character. She's got some things that she can, you can look at her and just, you see it. There's certain things about people that you can look at and pick up on. You can't read everything about people like a book, but there's some things that you know that they're solid in. And this woman was solid with strength and dignity. She wore it almost like a garment. And so this means that strength and dignity are so natural to her that she could just, anybody around her would be able to pick up on it. And when you look at those qualities, you know, these are the type of qualities that may begin on the inside, but they end up showing up on the outside. You know, when it speaks of strength here, it's not talking about physical strength. It's talking about mental resolve. You know, not being able to be wiped out by every little challenge that comes in your life, and emotionally just falling apart. But it's saying, you know, she knew where she was going. She knew what she needed to do, and she figured out a way to accomplish it. Think about the pioneer women as they traveled east to west across the country, or whatever the case was, and as they traveled with their husbands, and they would have to stop, and they would help clear forests, and they would build homes, and they would, you know, plant gardens and whatever they had to do. And all along that, they were having 7 or 8 babies. They never slowed down, you know. But when you ever see pictures of these women, you know, some of these old black and white still photos of these women, they're not all standing and all, you know, with their Sunday best on, and they may not all be smiling, but you can see strength and courage and dignity on their faces. And that's what he's talking about, you know. But I think too many times now today we get to focus so much on the outward appearance of people and the way that they look and their outward beauty that we forget about what really matters in life. So let's look then also at her inner characteristics. It says in verse 25 and 26, says she can laugh at the days to come. You know, realizes things are going to be tough, but she can still chuckle at it and laugh at it. You know, it says she speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction is on her tongue. You know, I love this part of the description of this woman. You know, she has a cheerful personality. She laughs. She enjoys herself. And that's important when you get to thinking about life, because if you always have a negative attitude about life and what's going on in your life, it brings your whole countenance down. And people are going to see it. You're going to be down and out looking on, you know, when they look at you and they notice you're not have a positive outlook on life. And, you know, you run into some people sometimes, they think that you almost think that they've had this humor bypass operation. You know, they're just like, I can't, you know, I just don't laugh. It don't matter what, I know some folks I've told jokes to before and they don't even crack a joke. I smile and I'm like, I know it's funny. If it's nothing but the way that I stammer through it, it's got to be funny. I mean, you know, because right now you're grinning at me just the way I talk. And I don't think it's so much because you're enjoying every word I'm saying. Be like, he don't even know what he's saying. You know, he don't even realize that way that sounded when it come out, you know. But some people don't. We seem to be overly critical. But then not this woman. You see, here's a woman who has a positive, cheerful outlook on life, and she can laugh. And the Bible also says she has hope, because it says she laughs with no fear about the future. That's hope. Well, you don't have to worry about everything that's going on. It's one thing to be concerned. It's one thing to be planning, and she was a good planner. She knew there was going to be some obstacles in her way sometime where she would have to stop and maybe reorganize or rethink her plan. But it didn't let her get it down because she had a course of action to take. And so many women today, again, are concentrated on their outer beauty, and we're going to get this tucked and that nipped and that. You know, so Dolly Parton, another one of her quotes says, as long as I can get it snipped, tucked, or snapped, or zipped up, I'm in good shape. You know? And, you know, you can't be 103 and look the way she does and without some little help somewhere. But anyway, but then look finally at the last dimension of her character that we're going to look at, and that's her spiritual character. Look, it says, many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gates. You hear the Hebrew word for charm is bodily form, and you can be deceived by a person's outward appearance. Doesn't mean if it's a man or a woman, but that outward appearance is going one day it's going to fail. It don't matter if we're a man, or it don't matter if we're a woman. 5 years ago I had a lot more hair than I got now. 5 years ago I felt like I was more in shape and tone, and but I realized it all changes. And gray is creeping up in my hair, what little bit I got left. And right on the front where there ain't hardly none, there's like two that want to keep going. I don't know if they're just feeling out like there's supposed to be some other hairs out here somewhere, and I'm going to look for them, or what. But I realize life changes. And all those things, are people going to remember me when I used to wear my hair down to my shoulders? Probably not. That's not what they're going to remember about me. What they're going to remember about me is the way that I have interacted with other people, and the way I have tried to live my life for the Lord, and the way that I'm going to try to help the people around me have a relationship with Him. And that's what this woman was doing. She was always concerned about the well-being of other people. She didn't simply go out and make money and buy fields and plant vineyards for her own good, because as we look through this, we find out she was looking out to bring honor to her husband. She was looking to take care of her children. She was also looking, it says she took care of her servant girls, the people in her household that were in her care. She made sure that they were well provided for. And because of all of that, it says, the woman who fears the Lord will be praised. Maybe this morning you're saying, well, where are all the Proverbs 31 women? We often hear about them. You look around the room. They were in our choir this morning. They were sitting out in the pews or sitting beside you. Maybe some weren't able to be here with you today, or maybe some of them are in the nursing homes. They can't get out with you anymore. But they're still there. Didn't say that they were perfect. Said they were striving to be perfect. Let me ask you this morning, are you trying to be the best you can be? Regardless if you're a woman or a man, are you trying to be as good as you can be? And are you looking out for the best interests of others? Are you trying to excel in your relationships? Are you trying to do the best with the abilities God's given you? And I hope, above all, that your character is a Christian character that's going to honor and give glory to God. Hey, I appreciate every one of you today. I thank you that you let me preach for you. I praise you that you allow me to be here on a weekly basis. But most importantly, I praise God because He allows us to learn from His Word and to find out how we can better serve Him. Look, we're going to offer you an invitation. Maybe it's not the type of sermon you've been used to listening to and say, well, I don't hear where I need to accept Jesus because of that. But you know what? It's until the Spirit of God comes in you and lives in you that you can accomplish many of the things we've talked about today. And so I want to ask you this morning, would you come and allow God to work in your life? Would you surrender yourself to Him? If you have never accepted Christ, today's a good time to do it. What better Mother's Day gift can you give anybody than to say, hey, Mom, I just wanted to stop by and let you know I accepted the Lord today. I got my life right with God. That would be probably the most wonderful thing you could bring her. Not a meal out, not the prettiest cards you can find, big jewelry box full of jewelry, whatever it is. If you would probably tell a godly mama, hey, my life's right with the Lord, she's going to fall down and weep. It's going to be the most precious thing you'll ever give her. So this morning, how about consider that? Not because simply you want to please her, but because you want to please God. For others of you, there's ladies that are sitting here, men that you say, look, there's some things I've got out of this message today. I want to get my life straight with the Lord. I want to get it back on track. Today's a good day to do that as well. Start it today, making it go forward for the future where people know that you honor the people who have been in your life, and you do that because they honored God, and you want to honor God as well. We're going to be singing a hymn of decision. as we go out. Wherever He leads, I'll go. 367, please.